Hello everyone, I'm Kathy Power, Superintendent with the Twinsburg City School District. Welcome to Twinsburg Schools today. Boy, I can't believe that we're in the month of November. This school year is seeming to fly by. I just told the students not so long ago that we're beginning the second quarter of the year, and they're so busy and they're so excited about learning every day. And we do thank our community for all of their support. Today's show is going to be talking all about early literacy skills, and our guest today will be Jennifer Farthing. She's our Director of Curriculum, along with Shelly Hauser, who is our literacy coach. So welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Well, Jen, I know that you are always so engaged in what happens in our classrooms, and you're a great leader to our teachers and instructional leader to the principals. This is a new idea for the school district, this whole idea about literacy coaching. Can you explain what that means to our community?
Yes, it is a new topic for Twinsburg. We have not ever had the opportunity really to have coaching. In the coaching environment, we have in this case, we have Shelly with us, and Shelly can provide a wide range of services and topics to our teachers. So Shelly can, in a coaching environment, the coach can model lessons, and then the teacher can observe the modeling of the lesson, and then the teacher can teach the lesson, and the coach can observe the lesson. And then after that, there's feedback given and discussion about, what went well, what could have gone better, and then also with the coaching, we are able to have professional development provided to our staff. And one thing that I think there was a slight negative feeling about coaching at the beginning, because I think the teachers thought, oh, why do they think I need coaching? And so we've really tried to put a very positive spin on coaching, because it is a fabulous opportunity that we have for our staff now. And I will probably say this many times during the presentation, but coaching just allows us to add a few more tools to the toolbox. It allows the teachers to perfect their craft and just say, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. Or, oh yeah, let me try that idea. I didn't think I could do it that way. So coaching has just been a very positive experience. It's been in a wide range of classrooms. We've had the ability to do coaching, and I think our teachers are reacting very positive, and it's been going very well for us.
So last year we were able to be the benefactor for a grant from the GAR Foundation, Idea Stream, and the SMART Consortium. And those coaches were not literacy coaches. What kind of coaches were those?
That was coaching that we had in the math and science, and the goal with that grant was grades 4 through 8, and our focus with that was all on mathematics and science, both at George G. Dodge and R.B. Chamberlain Middle School. And they worked with increasing our teachers' hands-on activities for math and science, giving us problem-based learning and inquiry-based learning. So that's how we've just been so lucky to have the coaching, and it's been, and right now we've had the experience with coaching K through 8.
That's wonderful. And so today's show is really talking about literacy coaching.
Correct.
So why is that important in today's classrooms?
Well, I think most people realize, well, first of all, reading lays the foundation for everything that we do. And right now there is a increased focus on literacy K to 3, because we do have the third grade guarantee, so that all of our students will leave third grade reading and on grade level. So it's just been, not that we ever ignored early literacy, but just there is such an increased focus on that right now, just because there is such an importance on there. And I think people are realizing that if we can take care of the skills early, then the students will continue to grow. And that's how the studies have proven that if we get on track, then the students will typically stay on track.
Absolutely. So did you stumble on Shelly Hauser? How is it that we were so lucky to find Shelly and have her work with our staff?
Well, I kind of liken it to I was in the right place at the right time. We as a district are a part of the Summit Education Initiative, stands for SEI is their acronym, and they have a variety of meetings from preschool through third grade. They have an 8th grade focus, and then they have a high school focus as well. So I was at the early literacy meeting, and we were talking about the opportunity for coaching and just the availability of coaching that they have provided through the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation grant. And I said, well, sign us up. This sounds like a great thing. How can you pass by this opportunity? So there was really no one else there at that time that was jumping on board with this, and I knew we were having the positive experience with the grades 4 through 8 coaching for math and science, and I thought, okay, we need to bring this down to Wilcox and Bissell. And again, it's all about those more tools for your toolbox. And at that point in time, we were talking about how we were going to work the coaching. Were we going to have one coach, two coaches? How was it best going to work? So at that time, we met with Shelley and her supervisor, Lisa Lenhart at the University of Akron, and we said, okay, we're going to try this out at Samuel Bissell Elementary in grades 2 and 3, and the rest is history.
So that was last school year?
That was last school year,
That's
yes.
wonderful. And this year, the focus is more so on Wilcox.
Yes, this year we have decided that we really want to narrow down that focus to kindergarten. We had a meeting with our building administrators in June of this year. Yes, that was this year, June of this year, going over last year's data. And we saw that it was kind of this population of students in kindergarten that were struggling. And we really wanted to just spend time targeting those kindergarten students and working with the teachers, working with the reading and intervention specialists, and working with those students so we could hopefully fill those gaps. Because some of the students don't come to us with the love of literature and books and the foundational skills that they need with their letters and alphabet and the sounds. So we just thought, okay, this is going to be our focus this year so we can see if we can build that foundation for the future.
Sounds like important work.
It has been. It's been a great experience.
So Shelley, can you tell our community a little bit about your background and what makes you just a wonderful asset as far as being our literacy coach here in our school district?
Okay, sure. I've been a literacy coach through the University of Akron for approximately 6 years, and I have had a background in literacy from kindergarten through 12th grade as a reading specialist who has my reading endorsement. I have had experiences, like I said, at every level, and one of the things that I have been doing in the recent past is teaching a couple of courses through the reading endorsement at the University of Akron. And it thrills me to be able to go to teachers in different districts, such as yours, and share even some of the information that I'm working with my students with those teachers. And so I take information that I've read about, that my students are working with, and I share those things with the teachers and give them some suggestions if they have questions for me about what I can, help them think about in terms of instructing the students.
So this reminds me a little bit of an athletic coach. So how do you relate what you do as a literacy coach to what one of our parents or community members might know about an athletic coach?
That's a really good comparison. All of my children play sports, and I've learned a lot of things about what coaches do in sports because of what my children do. And one really profound example that came across my radar recently, I have a son who's in the 8th grade, and he's a baseball player, and he pitches for his team. And one day he was just sitting beside me, and he was holding a baseball, and he moved the baseball around in his hand, and he said, "Mom, what kind of a pitch do you think I'm going to throw now?" And because I don't know very much about baseball, I didn't really know. So he would tell me the type of pitch he was going to throw. Then he would move his ball around and move his hand again, and he would show me something else and ask me what kind of a pitch that would be. Unfortunately, the only one I knew was knuckleball. But a literacy coach is like an athletic coach in the same kind of way, because like my son, he comes to the game, he knows what to do in the game, but the coaches help him with little strategies to improve his pitching or anything else he does as he plays. I can go into a classroom with teachers who they come to the field experienced. They know a lot about teaching, but maybe something stumps them. Maybe they have a student who just has some sort of an issue that they can't work through with their reading, and the teacher may have tried several different things, and I take a little bit of time and observe what's happening, and maybe I'll have a suggestion that might make a little bit of a difference and cause the student to potentially grow as a reader. So that's kind of what I do. I observe what's happening, and then I talk with the teacher. If the teacher wants me to give a demonstration, as Jennifer said, I'm more than happy to model different types of instruction so that the teacher can see what I'm doing and then maybe try that himself or herself.
So beyond the teachers, in fact, just recently, Jen and I observed you and another coach, Pam
Oviatt, my colleague.
working with our instructional assistants. So your coaching isn't just meant for classroom teachers.
No, not at all. Yes, working with the instructional assistants, just the other day, Pam and I, my coaching colleague, gave lots of tools to them. As Jennifer also said, we come with tools to maybe potentially have the instructional assistants, as they learned the other day, carry with them, so that if they're working with a student and they realize that a student might have a particular need, for instance, in kindergarten, it's very important for kids to be able to hear rhyming. So Pam and I gave them some tools that they could use, a concentration game with rhyming words, books that they could read with the kids to help the kids with rhyming. And not only did we suggest to them read these books with the children, but we suggested a procedure that we call close procedure, where you might be reading a rhyme. For instance, if you're thinking of Dr. Seuss, who is one of my favorites, yes. And you think of the book Green Eggs and Ham, the story sort of goes like this: that Sam I am, that Sam I am, I do not like that Sam I am, I do not like green eggs and you don't say the rest, you let the child fill in the rhyming word. That's close procedure. So that's something that we shared with the instructional assistants, and maybe they realized that that's something you could do, but we kind of brought that back to their attention. So that was one of several tools that we taught them.
One of the interesting things I heard you say is that students today really don't have the opportunity to hear nursery rhymes or those kinds of pieces of literature because they're maybe so dependent on technology, and it's more of visual than perhaps auditory. Is that a problem for our young children as they're learning their early literacy skills?
Unfortunately, it does seem like the kids are not coming to school knowing the nursery rhymes. And the truth of the matter is, yes, technology may have an impact on that, but the other truth of the matter is that there are a zillion authors out there who have written children's books that have rhyming patterns in them. But it's an important thing to make people aware, like parents or grandparents or even maybe instructional assistants or teachers, of maybe some of those titles that they could be bringing into their classroom. And I know a lot of teachers do a lot of things with rhyming, but the nursery rhyming piece doesn't seem to be what it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. It seems to be falling by the wayside. But if anybody ever had any questions about types of books that you could read with kids that have rhymes in them, you could go to the librarian and they would be glad to help.
Now, you mentioned that even parents and grandparents can really play a critical role, a very important role in helping children learn early literacy skills. What are some of the tips that you might offer to our parents or our grandparents?
I totally agree with you that parents and grandparents have such an important role. Often you hear it said that a parent or a grandparent is the child's first teacher. And my tips would be, talk to a librarian. One of the most important things you can do to help a child become a better reader is to read with them. Richard Allington is a well-known researcher who he promotes that all of the time. Several researchers are always trying to promote the importance of reading books. It really is true. The more you read, the better you're going to build up your own toolbox of knowledge about reading. So if grandparents or parents want some help with what are some things that I could read with my child, librarians are always willing to help. Teachers are always willing to help too. Teachers try to keep the lines of communication open with parents and grandparents, and so if they've got suggestions for your child, definitely hear what they have to say. If you're not sure if you understand what their expectations are, just say to them, can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean about this? Parents can go to teachers and get all kinds of advice and help for their kids.
What about our little tigers that aren't quite ready for kindergarten, the preschoolers getting ready for their first school experience? What kinds of things can our families do at home to help them get ready for their first days of school?
Wonderful question. I have to say, honestly, reading is one of the first things that I think is very important. But another extremely important thing that you can do to help children to get ready for school, for their formal education, is to talk to them a lot. And not just talk about business matters like, okay, I need you to go pick up your toys, or it's time for us to go get your coat. Not just those things are more of your business conversations, but have conversations with kids about what's going on in the world around you. When you're outside, right now is a perfect time to be talking about how beautiful the leaves are on the trees and what a wonderful time of year it is when there's a little chill in the air in the fall and we're not as hot as we were in the summer. Have deep conversations. And I personally, even as a parent, when my children were younger, always used to think, what are more words I can give them? What are synonyms for words that I can give them to build their vocabulary? That's very important. The rhyming that I had mentioned earlier, so that they can hear sounds and words, helps them to later be able to see what words look like and associate the sounds with what they're seeing as they read. Alphabet letter knowledge is another one that I think is extremely important. And I can tell you, this is just an example from my own parenting. My oldest daughter, especially, I remember, because she was the only one at the time, we would, every night when I would clean up after dinner and be doing up the dishes, she would bring me an alphabet letter magnet from the refrigerator. And I wouldn't just tell her, that's a B. I would say, that's a B for bubbles and bumblebee. And I would help her to recognize the letter, but also realize that there's a sound that matches that letter. So reading, rhyming, letters and sounds, vocabulary, those are the biggest components, I think.
So then our little Tigers become kindergartners and first graders. What kinds of things can parents of that age of child do to assist us with early literacy skills?
At that point in time, I know a lot of emphasis is on sight word recognition, and it is a really important thing to help kids recognize sight words that are, words that aren't as easy to just break down and figure out. The is a sight word, where is a sight word. Teachers have sight word lists, and I know they send that information home for parents. Pay attention to that and help your kids to learn what their sight words are. Also, and I just was talking with instructional assistants about this the other day, look for sight words in books that you're reading, okay? Also, continue to think about the rhyming component of things and maybe start to notice what rhyming words look like so that you're moving beyond just hearing those things to seeing them in what you're reading.
Right. One of the things that Pam mentioned at the session with the instructional assistants is that some of this information can even be told in the dark.
Yes.
It's more about the sounds of things, then it becomes more visual as the child becomes a little older.
Yes. It's amazing to realize the building blocks for the foundation of learning to read come from hearing first. So if you're hearing rhymes and you can say a word and your child can tell you a word that rhymes with it, that's showing you they're hearing those sounds. If you say a letter and you give an example of a word that begins with that letter, and then the child can give you more words that begin with that letter, that's showing you that they're hearing those sounds without even seeing the words. It's just a matter of conversation.
Interesting. So I know that the trend seems to be in our school district anyhow, the focus on nonfiction, perhaps more than fiction. In your opinion, what's important? Both? Neither? Some more than others?
They are both important, and I actually really feel like there's kind of a 50-50 there where researchers and educators do want to see, still reading those narrative texts and understanding stories, fiction stories, and how they're put together and how authors write interesting things in stories. But the nonfiction, that's a definite strong point for vocabulary and learning more about your world. I love to read books about animals with kids and about trees and just different things that are good nonfiction topics to learn more about. I love to read about other places in America than Ohio, other places in the world, to give kids that exposure and expand their knowledge about nonfiction topics.
For whatever reason, it seems that for young children, we seem to be over-relying on the fiction book. So it really would be important for families to really engage children in the nonfiction too.
Definitely. And again, if you're not sure where to go with that, talk to a children's librarian because they are always happy to help with that. Teachers as well.
What about tips on fluency? I know that's one of the things that often comes up in conversation. For example, my child can read a lot. They read well, but then they're not really understanding what they're reading. Any tips to help parents, help kids not only read fluently, but also comprehend what they're reading?
Okay, definitely. One of the best things you can do for the comprehension aspect of that is think about asking lots of different questions, but not maybe just questions about what was the character wearing, but more of a deeper critical thinking question like, how do you think the character in this story feels? You might even need to back up and stop and say, who is the character in this story? Who is the person or the animal or whoever that is involved in the story? And why do you think the character does what he or she does in the story? So asking critical thinking questions beyond just what do they look like, what did they say?
Right, the things at the low level we're trying to move on, and I think that's maybe an education term, the low level, but we really do want to get the deeper questions, the critical questions, and you're starting to get them into the story, but then also just probing deeper to get the deeper understanding.
Right.
And I know in our school district we talk about depth of knowledge.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit to our families? What does that mean?
Yes, depth of knowledge are there's 4 levels, and it's Webb's depth of knowledge, and you have, like, when I would say low level, those are the questions that you can find right in the text. For example, what were they wearing, or what color was their shirt? And those are the questions that aren't really showing us if the student understood the story. They read it, they understood the shirt was blue, but other than that, it's not probing and going deeper. And then when you look at the other part of the depth of knowledge, it's the questions again, the probing deeper, and requiring the students to go back and maybe put what their personal experience is to answer their question. So, how do you think they felt when that happened? So it's really taking them on a different level. So kind of would be how to describe that.
So, Shelley, in your work, would questions at the higher levels of the depth of knowledge be something that even our small children would be able to master?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sometimes we sell the little ones short. They really do. Actually, they have very creative minds, and so they can really think on those more critical levels of questioning and answering. Just even asking them, a lot of times we want to teach kids early on, there's an author who wrote this story. And so you start to hear that in kindergarten for sure, if not before. Oh yes, there's an author who wrote the words of the story. And it's a really great thing to actually talk to the kids and say, why do you think the author made the story the way he or she did? And they will come up with answers for you. Or how did this make you feel? The author did this, and how did that make you feel? And believe me, they have answers for that. And those are critical thinking questions.
Surely. Now, how about writing in the world of literacy? How important is that?
Writing is extremely important too, and it's sometimes for some people, children and adults alike, is extremely difficult. Another aspect of coaching that I am working on somewhat in the school district is the writing curriculum that's being used in the classrooms from kindergarten through 3rd grade. And a lot of what we're doing with writing right now is we're using books that authors have already written, and we're taking that as an example of how we can write. And the kids are really having a lot of fun with that and making it a more enjoyable experience. We do want them to spell well, and we do want them to acknowledge the punctuation and the important conventions of writing, but we also want them to feel creative. So we might not emphasize the punctuation and the spelling right away. Let's get the creativity on paper first, and then if we really love what we wrote about, let's edit it and revise it and fix it up so that it looks really good and it's conventionally well done.
And that's a challenge, I think, for parents, because I know just this weekend my dad was reading some of my stories that my daughter wrote. He's like, are they not going to teach spelling? And we are teaching spelling, but it's just, as you said, we have to get the creativity out, and we want them to express their feelings and get their story out, and then we'll work on the conventions and the spelling. And it comes in due time, but it is hard for some parents, like, we need this to be correct. And
they're going to gain more of a love of writing if they have the opportunity
Yes.
to get the creative part out first.
yes.
That's a great tip. It really is. So, Shelley, if you could offer 1 or 2 tips as we close the segment for today to our parents, what would those do? What would those be in regard to literacy?
I definitely want to go back to the whole read to your children, read with your children, listen to your children read.
Absolutely.
If your children can't read all of the words, let them tell you the stories through the pictures. Talk to them about what's happening in the stories. get some nonfiction books that have to do with topics that they're interested in. Everybody loves some kind of an animal. Find those kinds of things and learn new things about what you read about in the nonfiction books, and talk to them, talk to them, talk to them.
It's a great idea. And Jen, as we move into this year, into the second quarter and beyond, what are some of the plans you have in line for our literacy coach?
Again, we really want to have our focus on kindergarten and just really honing in on those students and seeing what we can do to help them not be struggling at this point in time. And then we're also going to be relying on Shelley and Pam for some of our professional development for our teaching staff. So as Shelley discussed the writing and the reading, and we're going to focus on that on our upcoming in-service days for our staff at Wilcox and Bissell. And I know the Dodge teachers would love to have Shelley and Pam as well, but we're going to stick with our K-3 initiative as the grant funding is permitting. But just those focuses on professional development and giving the teachers the tools that they need.
Well, Jen, I appreciate always your efforts and looking out for our kids and making sure that we have the very best programming in place for our staff to do a great job with the students. And Shelley, thanks for your interest in working with the Twinsburg City School District. I think that this is a wonderful partnership, and we do thank the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation for their funding that brings you to our school district, along with the Summit Education Initiative. Wonderful organizations that support our school district in so many ways.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being at our show today.
Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up our show for November, just a couple of announcements. Don't forget, it's almost time for those winter sports to kick off. We're excited about all of the winter sports, but we want to say thanks and congratulations to all of our fall sports athletes and their coaches and the parents that support our kids and the bigger community. Thank you so much. Our Tigers do a great job. They're just such great sportsmen and sportswomen, and I'm so very proud of each and every one of them. Also, something new here in our school district is a partnership that we're forging ahead with Summit County, with our local municipalities, and with the Twinsburg Ministerial Association as we bring the Fatherhood Initiative to our school district. Look for information all about the Fatherhood Initiative. There will be the first meeting on Saturday, November 14th from 9 to 1 at the Sanctuary of Praise over on Haddon Road. This is a great opportunity for our dads and our dad role models to come together as a group and learn about ways that you can support your child as children and as students here in our school district. You'll be finding more information about that soon on our website, as well as flyers that will be sent home with our elementary children. And of course, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. On November 25th is Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's a day that we don't have school. And of course, Thanksgiving Day and the day after our days of no school either. And on behalf of our entire school district, along with our Board of Education, we wish each and every one of you a fantastic Thanksgiving. Thanks for always being such a support to the Twinsburg City School District. We are very grateful to all that you do to support our Tigers. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon in the Twinsburg City School District.